Welcome to this week's Forex forecast for the week ending August 2nd, 2024. Today we're going to talk about the DXY, the EURUSD, the Pound USD, the Australian dollar versus the USD, and also gold to wrap up. So I don't want to waste your time, guys. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. We do have a lot to talk about, despite the fact that the DXY was very sideways last week. It was a very uneventful week for the DXY with it just between here 104 and 104.5. So we talked about previously this reclaim down here below 104. So you can see back here, we've got several lows in this area, and we did get the close below the close right back above. So that right there is a failed breakdown, also called a fake out. And typically in situations like this, you do get an extended move in the opposite direction. So for the DXY, that should mean a move higher over the coming weeks. Now, what we've seen so far is bulls really just kind of struggle to break this market out above 104.5. Okay, so you can also see something too here that I believe is a new addition to the chart. I don't think we talked about this last week, but you can see where we do have this descending channel off of these highs. Okay, so this right here gives you a little bit more context into what's going on with the DXY. And of course, we also have this ascending trend line that we've talked about in previous videos. So you can see that off of this closing price right down here, all right, so closing price down here, we've got this low, these lows through here, and we had the breakdown. And this is kind of why I've had my eye on this 105 area, especially given the reclaim down here at 104. So the bottom line as we go into next week here is that as long as the DXY is above 104 on the higher time frames, I do like this market higher, potentially up there toward the 105 area. Now, if we look at the 4-hour time frame, this is what we talked about in the VIP group this past week, where earlier in the week, it did look like we were getting a inverse head and shoulders here, potentially based on some of these highs and lows here through this area. Now, recently, though, the last day or two, the market has just gone sideways. Again, bulls have really struggled to break this market out to the upside. So we'll see if this can confirm next week. It is still technically valid, although you really don't want to see the right shoulder just continue sideways like this. You really want to see bulls step in, push the market above 104.5 and get that sustained break above this area. If we don't see that, sometime early next week, then in my opinion, the idea that this is an inverse head and shoulders on the 4-hour time frame is at risk, okay, to say the least. So we'll see how this goes. But again, this area down here at 104 is going to be key support. You've got key resistance up here at 104.5. And again, a close above here opens up that 105 area. And of course, a close back below 104, especially on the daily time frame next week, would be bearish for the US dollar. So next up, we have the EURUSD, which we've talked about the breakout here from this 2021 trend line before. You can see here on the weekly chart, we did get a breakout above this level, and so far it is holding above this, okay? So this is still intact. This is not yet a fake out. So looking at the daily chart, you can see where we have a lot of daily closes above this level. Again, though, this descending level up here is being respected on a weekly closing basis. Now, looking at the daily time frame, okay, what you can see here is, and this is what we talked about last week, where you can see that back here, if we draw out these highs from right back here, you can see where we did get a close above here. Okay, so above and back below, retest as resistance and sell off. Okay, so for the most part, the euro, the pound have played out as expected. Same thing with the Australian dollar, which we'll get to later in the video. But right now with the euro over the last few days, we have just kind of seen this stall out with the DXY going sideways. But again, for the most part, what we've talked about here, it has played out relatively well following the breakdown from this ascending channel, which is best seen on the 4-hour time frame. So looking at the 4 hours here, you can see that this channel right here gave traders an early short following that fake out on the daily chart we just looked at. And that has played out pretty well. But again, the last few days have just been very sideways. Now, this could be, okay, a bullish pattern for early next week up here toward this consolidation. Because I continue to think when I look at this chart, right, we've got this area up here, this pocket of consolidation right here for the euro that has not really been tested yet. We saw this high back here, but for the most part, the market hasn't come up here into this area to really test this area. So in my opinion, for early next week, 1.088 is going to be one to watch, or an area to watch for next week. So essentially, if we just plot this out as far as support and resistance, we have this area right up here. Okay, so this consolidation up here as resistance for next week. And then as far as support, you've got this consolidation back here. But specifically, I'm looking at this area down here. So the 2021 trend line. But again, you do have to pay attention to these lows back here, just above 1.08. Okay, so early next week, I do think we could see a test of these lows back here, potentially a move above this area into candles like this back here. And then from there, potentially that move lower down here toward the lows, and then down there toward 1.08 or potentially even 1.078. Okay, so I still think that we get a little bit lower here from the euro. I could be wrong on that, but as long as the market is below this area up here, I do like the euro lower into that area around 1.08. All right, so next up we have the pound, which has also played out really, really well here over the past couple of weeks. So if you guys saw recent videos, we were looking at this larger ascending channel back here. So we've got these lows down here. We've also got these highs. And you can see where this was a confluence of resistance that we talked about up there just above 1.30. So we've also got this smaller channel right here off of these highs and lows, and the market came right into that area and reversed. So we did catch this in the VIP group. We talked about it at the time, and that is playing out relatively well so far. Now, one thing that the market just did, though, in the last 48 hours is it did close below this high from right back here. Okay, so right around 1.29. This is going to be resistance going into next week because you can see here that this week we did see the pound catch some support here in this area. Okay, so right around 1.29, you can see all these lows right back here. This is going to be resistance for next week. So just like the euro, the area that I'm eyeing here is going to be that 2021 trend line, right? So if we go in here to the daily, zoom all the way out here, what you can see here is that we've got these highs up here. Okay, so before the breakout, we have these highs, and this area intersects with the bottom of this smaller channel as well. Okay, so I do think that we see lower here from the pound, but just keep in mind, though, that the market is sitting on support here on Friday. So right around 1.285, you can see these highs right back here. We've got this high and this one here. The market is bouncing a little bit there today. Okay, so we've got resistance up here right around 1.29, support down around 128.50, and a sustained break below this opens up this confluence of support down here closer to 1.275. And alternatively, if we get the close above 1.29 next week, then that could introduce some strength back here toward imbalances like this up here around 1.3. All right, now for the one that really played out well last week. And if you guys saw the last weekend video, what we were talking about was this candle right here. Okay, so we had the breakdown on this candle. And what I said is this area up here was resistance and support was down here. Okay, so these lows back here right around 65.80. Now, this all started, okay, and we talked about this in the VIP group as well, but this all started with a buy side fake out above this trend line back here. Okay, so fake outs like this, typically I like to look for at horizontal levels, but when you have a trend line like this, especially an ascending one, and you get a close above and a close right back below on the daily chart, that is something to pay attention to because it's telling you that you are likely to get a reversal, and that's exactly what we got here. Now, did I know that it was going to be this aggressive? Of course not, right? I don't think anybody did, but the point here is that you got a buy side fake out to a well-established level like this, and you had the market completely just take out this entire pocket back here and also sweep those lows down there around 65.80. Now, as for next week, what am I looking for? Well, we've got the market closing below these lows back here, right around 65.80. Okay, so if you're looking for shorts here, in my opinion, it's got to be on a retest of this area. Now, the somewhat risky part here, and it depends on what the DXY does, of course, but the somewhat risky part here is that you've got imbalances that have built up all along the way. Okay, so all of these candles represent imbalances up here, simply because the market moves so aggressively that there is going to be open liquidity up here in this area that could serve as a magnet. However, just keep in mind, it doesn't mean that it's going to serve as a magnet next week or even in the coming weeks. It could take months for those to fill. So the point here is that if you are looking for shorts, in my opinion, never financial advice, but if you're looking for shorts here, it's got to be based on these lows from back here. Now, the way that this market tests that level, if we get a retest, is going to be critical, because if we see it tested immediately on Monday, then you've got to be really careful here, because one thing I talk about with breakdowns like this, especially at the start of a week, is if you get an immediate retest next week, then that could be indicative of this down here becoming a fake out and the market reclaiming this and heading up here toward those imbalances. Now, of course, again, it depends on what the DXY is doing. If the DXY is rallying, holding above 104, then I don't think we get this scenario. If the DXY were to break below 104 on the daily chart and we get the Australian dollar breaking back above 65.80, then I do think we could have a rally on our hands. But as long as the DXY stays, constructive, and this market gives you a nice rounded retest of these lows, then that could be potentially a short for next week down here toward areas like this around 64.50. All right, so really nice trade from last week, guys. Again, we were talking about this breakdown last weekend, and we got that move down here toward those lows and then some. All right, so last but not least, we have gold XAUUSD. And before we dive into the 4-hour time frame, I do want to show the daily chart. And by the way, guys, if you are enjoying this content, a little bit late in the video for this, but if you are enjoying the content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon. So on the daily chart, we clearly have an ascending channel here off of these lows. It's slightly ascending, but it is a parallel channel. Okay, so we've got these highs back here. Now, we talked about this in the VIP group as well. This move up here was actually a fake out on the 4-hour time frame. So this was an early indication up here, the close above and the close back below, that we were likely to see a reversal from gold. Now, looking at the 4-hour chart, what we talked about in VIP this past week was this area up here. So you guys will remember this trend line back here on the 4-hour from last week's video. So all of these lows back here, right? We had the breakdown through here. We had the retest as resistance here, another retest up here. And this is the one that I mentioned to members, and it played out incredibly well because this area back here, this red box that you see right here, I had this drawn before the market got up there based on some of these highs back here and this consolidation. And we got the move into that level perfectly and the move down here toward these lows. Now, once we got that, okay, it was pretty clear that gold was moving within a smaller descending channel. And if you look here, you can see that, so far the market has respected this incredibly well. In fact, this area down here is when I told members to look for a bounce. In fact, I drew this path right here that you see before gold was even rallying today. So it's following it perfectly so far. We'll see if it continues. It looks almost too good to be true, but we also have to respect what's on the chart. As long as gold is doing this, then I'm going to continue to analyze the market in this way. Okay, so looking here, going back to these highs, this is the area that the market's coming into today as resistance. Okay, so pretty clear, highs and lows through this area. We've also got the top of that channel that could come into play on Monday or Tuesday of next week. So in my opinion, as long as the market holds below, let's say 23.95, then we could see, potentially some consolidation in this zone next week and then a retest over here somewhere. Now, if we get that and it looks favorable, then it could be that next leg lower down there toward that larger channel bottom, right around 2,300 or just above. Now, of course, this is just my opinion. It doesn't mean the market will do this, but that is what I'll be watching for next week, as long as we get a favorable retest up here sometime between like Monday and Tuesday. Now, of course, on the flip side, if we were to see gold come up here next week and take this area out and close above here and also above areas like this back here. Okay, if we were to see that up here in this area, then that could be bullish back here toward these highs and potentially back toward like 2460 or so. But again, as long as the market's playing out in this way, holding below 23.95 today, then this path right here is what I'll be looking for next week. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon for notifications. Don't forget to join us in VIP, save 90% on lifetime access. See the link in the description of this video, or if you're on the website, click on that join VIP link. I will see you on the inside. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you again next week.